Hello and welcome to our webinar. My name is Nicole Prohaska, and today I will give you a short overview of your possibilities with and the flexibilities of our inventory for testing cognitive capabilities, which is a mouthful, so we just call it INT. But before we discuss the test INT itself, let's take a step back and reflect on the challenges that modern aptitude testing is currently facing. The one thing I want to bring up is internationalization. We have here most of the time two different approaches. On the one hand, global companies are recruiting in many parts of the world already. And they sometimes need to recruit over long distances as markets expand geographically, while the administration centralizes. So there's less administration for bigger markets. On the other hand, some industries are forced to recruit abroad, like professional drivers or truck drivers, where there's been a significant personnel shortage for years already. And even if you're not working in one of these industries, online recruiting is just a lot more comfortable and feasible these days, since because of the whole COVID situation and the pandemic, we are already very accustomed and very used to doing online meetings and doing online interviews. So this is just something that we need to consider in the future. The obvious answer to this challenge is, yeah, if we need to reach people abroad that we cannot reach physically, then we send out online tests. Another challenge is that some industries have far too many applicants, other industries have far too few applicants. And this is also industry specific. For example, in countries with extensive rail networks, there is a constant and high need for train drivers to service all of these routes. Also, driving a train is something that a lot of people find pretty cool. So naturally, there's a lot of applicants for each open position. This applies also to, for example, the airline industry with pilots. On the other hand, for example, sales jobs are famous for their high fluctuation, and they also have a rather low bar of entry compared to other industries. And all of this results in a constant recruiting of new employees. So you don't have a lot of applicants, but you have like a constant stream of applications. But also, since there are so many sales jobs available, there are few applications, if any, and the applications that come in are oftentimes not such a good fit for the company or for the job itself. So when we're talking about we have too few applications, what we need to keep in mind is that we actually mean that not enough suitable people apply. You don't need 10 suitable applicants if you only have one job. You just need one. And we need a tool to pick out the ones that are actually fit for the job compared to, for example, pilots and train drivers, where we have to select in order to have a manageable amount of applicants that we can interview. So here the obvious answer is, if we have too many applicants, we need to screen them before we do a comprehensive testing or comprehensive interview. If we have to, we should look very closely at the screen. We should look very closely at the applications that we already have. So they very early stage. Another challenge is that our target groups have changed their user behavior over the last couple of years or decades. I have here a study. It's unfortunately in German, but relevant part is the circle here in the middle. You can see here that for especially younger generations, the smartphone was in 2017 already the central device over which they access the internet. And the study was replicated in 2019. And here we see that the smartphone is like for mostly everyone, and especially for the generations that are relevant to the labor market. It's just the central device, and most generations spend, if they go online, they mostly do it with their smartphone. On another note, there was a study in 2021 that was conducted in the US, where they had a look at how household income correlates with access to broadband internet. So they found that typically households that have lower income also usually don't have a broadband internet, but access internet only over their phone. So it's even more central to them to have a phone, which makes sense because a smartphone is far cheaper than a desktop PC or a laptop. So the challenge here is not to systematically exclude certain populations, be it younger generations or lower income households, when sending out our online tests that are typically meant for the desktop PC or laptop. So yeah, we need to send out tests on a smartphone, especially over the long run. And then there's these three are more like administrative challenges, challenges in terms of scope, but we also have a psychometric challenge because cognitive abilities are becoming increasingly important in all professions and should be tested for most jobs. Cognitive abilities, why should they be tested? It generally are referred to as intelligence. They are highly predictive of school, academic, and career success. This is not something new. This is not something that we found out just recently. There have been a lot of studies and meta-analysis that show this consistently. Also, the correlation usually is positive. So the better the cognitive abilities, the better people perform in various professional tasks. And this correlation, scientists think that this correlation will be even stronger in the future. And there are many reasons for that, but one central to the labor market is that automation takes over many of the simpler routine tasks. So the tasks that employees need to do now on all levels require more cognitive skills because they are not the usual repetitive routine tasks, but they are tasks that require complex thinking and problem solving, for example. And this is all something that you need cognitive abilities for. So since we need to test cognitive abilities, we also need a sound scientific model in order to test those abilities and see how these abilities are reflected in people. And this brings us to our test because INT is your tool and a very good tool for testing those cognitive abilities. Of course, there are a lot more challenges that go hand in hand with recruiting or career counseling, but let's settle with those four and tackle these ones. With INT, you test for specific cognitive abilities. We have 4 subtests with 4 different types of tasks. In the subtest logical reasoning, a respondent has to identify the one cell in a matrix, that's the 3x3 matrix, and has to identify the one cell that does not conform to the rules that the other cells follow. It's a very usual task for measuring logical reasoning. In the subtest numerical abilities, we need the respondent to complete an equation by filling in the missing numerical operators. Then we have a subtest that is called verbal abilities, in which the respondent has to complete a word analogy. So forest to tree is like meadow to whatever. And then they have to choose the word from a list which correlates in the same way with meadow as tree correlates with forest. And in the last subtest, which is visual spatial ability, our respondents, our applicants are presented with an abstract figure that is first shown in the start view. That's the picture above. And then the figure is turned to the target view. And the task is, sorry, And the task is to choose from which direction the figure is viewed in the target view compared to the starting view. So is it viewed from the bottom, from the top, from the right or left? And if you present more than 2 of these subtests, you get 1 value for each of these very specific abilities. And if you present if you administer the test with 2 or more subtests, then there's also a value for the overall cognitive ability. If you think you recognize this structure, then you are right, and you might be referring to the CHC model, which is short for Cattell-Horn-Carroll model. This is the most widely used model of intelligence that we have in science. It's a hierarchical model of intelligence in which a general so-called G factor, that's the one on the top, influences a set of more distinct abilities, like you see here, for example, fluid reasoning or visual processing, which in turn are also comprised of very specific narrow abilities. And because they are so specific and narrow, like induction, visualization, lexical knowledge, and mathematical achievement, we can measure these very narrow things with very specific and designed tasks. Of course, you also see that this model is very broad and comprehensive. It's also not complete. It's just one part of the whole model. And testing all of these abilities would be a bit overeager. I think you cannot subject a test person to like 7 hours of testing. So for INT, we only included the abilities that have the best predictive value when it comes to professional and academic success. So only the tasks that are good at predicting whether a person will be good at their job or not. And these are these 4 that I already talked about. And you can also see that the screenshots are taken from a smartphone. This is because INT was developed with the mobile first principle in mind. So it has to function on a smartphone, but it also has to function on tablet and PC, so that we can reach all of our target groups, all of our generations that we need to reach when we are recruiting or when we do career counseling, for example. So with INT, we can already tackle 3 of these challenges rather easily, because INT was built with these challenges in mind. However, there is one last challenge that I haven't addressed so far, which is the switch between screening and comprehensive testing. Over the last minutes, I talked a lot about different industries and how we should test cognitive abilities in a lot of jobs, and that we should do a screening to save time and do a comprehensive testing to be safe. So that leaves us with a lot of different target groups and that a lot of different areas of application that we need to apply into. And this is where INT really begins to shine, because you can adapt INT very easily to your target group and to your test environment, be it online, be it on site, or be it proctored. Below, you can see a screenshot of the extended options that are all available for INT. You can select your subtest, your presentation type, the test duration, starting difficulty, and so on. And there's a lot to play around with. And before I explain all of this in very dry details, let's just do 3 quick examples to illustrate how this works. Let's start with Anna. Anna would like to select highly specialized professionals for a laboratory. She has high demand and she needs to fill this position because the laboratory cannot function when this position is not filled, at least not properly. She also has a high expenditure on recruiting because we are dealing with specialized professionals who have a lot of demands. And she has many applicants from abroad because this is such a narrow field and the education, and you need a lot of education and postgraduate training to actually be able to work this position. She has not many applicants, but most of them are not nearby, but are from somewhere abroad. Also, they are because they are specialized professionals, they are highly trained, highly educated. So she needs to find out from this pool of very good applicants who is the best and who she should give this position to. So how would she choose her settings? First of all, she would probably go with the subtests logical reasoning, because it's always important, numerical ability because they need to do analysis and stuff, and also verbal ability because they sometimes have to do like press releases or write papers, and then it's good to have good verbal abilities when you present your findings. For presentation type, she chooses adaptive, which matches the test difficulty via an algorithm to a person's individual ability. This allows her to gather maximum information about a person's abilities, which is a good way to distinguish even between applicants that are already very similar in terms of their ability level, which in this case might be the case because, as I said, we deal with very highly trained and specialized professionals here. For duration, Anna chooses medium because she wants a thorough testing, but also not overwhelm her very busy applicants with like 3 hours of testing, at least not in this early stage in the application process. And for difficulty, she chooses difficult because, of course, she can assume that her highly trained, educated applicants will just breeze through the easy tasks anyway. So she wants the test to meet them where they are ability-wise. In another city, in another company, we have Lisa, who needs to select technical apprentices for her company. She also has high demand. She needs to fill those positions. She has a high training costs because an apprenticeship is usually very long. So dropouts hurt even more. So she needs to find people who will actually go through with the training, stay with the company, and make their investment back, have a good return on investment. And here she has the problem that there's virtually no entry requirements, and so she has a very large pool of applicants because the company is also very famous. So how would she choose her settings? First of all, she would choose probably the subtest logical reasoning, numerical ability, and visual spatial ability, since we are dealing with technical tasks and technical jobs. For presentation type, she chooses randomized because she has a special case here. For marketing purposes, the recruiting is actually held on site. So they invite all their candidates on site. And the recruiting is combined with a factory tour and an information event to further screen the applicants, give them all the information, whether they really want to work for this company. So large groups of applicants will be tested together in a room on the recruiting day. And here, randomized is a very good fit because it presents a fixed number of tasks in ascending difficulty, but each task is chosen randomly from a large pool of tasks. So an easy task is chosen from a pool of easy items, and so on. And this will prevent cheating, even if the applicants manage to glimpse on another screen. Unfortunately, because there are so many applicants and the room is booked, afterwards, Lisa needs to manage them all rather efficiently. So she chooses a short test duration and use this selection round only as a screening and see what comes out of it. And the most promising applicants will do a comprehensive testing later on. And for difficulty, she chooses medium because she wants to challenge the applicants a bit, but also they are still applying for an apprenticeship. So starting too difficult might just demotivate them. And last but not least, we have Jun, who is a career counselor, and she does not want to select at all, but she wants to counsel and show career paths. She has a fixed time frame with a very close supervision, so she has one-on-one sessions usually. The focus should be not on selection, but on discovering all the strengths and development areas in order to actually give good feedback, good evaluation. And the testing here is very important that it is motivating, so that people don't lose interest because they are here voluntarily. Yeah, for settings, she goes with all the subtests that INT offers, because of course she has to go in very broad in order to discover everything that's there. For presentation type, she has to shift her usual face-to-face meetings to online meetings. So she also needs to send out links, do the test session and the counseling online. But she's also in the session while the test is conducted. So she is there for any questions that her client might have. So this is a one-on-one session, very closely supervised. And so she only tests one person at a time, and there's also no real incentive to cheat. And this is why she chooses to go with the linear test presentation, which presents the same item to everyone. But since there's virtually no incentive for cheating and no risk of cheating, that's absolutely fine for her case. For duration, she opts for long because she needs to gather as much information as she can in order to give a comprehensive feedback and evaluation afterwards. And for difficulty, she goes with easy as to not overwhelm her client and to keep the testing motivating with a few easy items in the beginning, so that all her clients are very motivated that they could solve the first items. Yeah, so that's 3 very quick examples. If you haven't found your specific case or need even more flexibility, you can see here, this is the basic settings. We also have a button for extended settings. And these ones have you covered if you have the need for even more configuration options. Here you have more parameters that you can play around with, can adapt to your specific needs, like the reliability or a maximum test duration. In all cases, no matter what you do, the results are clearly output at the end, either in a result table and a profile, or optionally in a verbalized report that can be handed out to the applicant or to the clients if you wish so. So yeah, we have covered our last challenge that we have discussed until now. And you can see that within all of these challenges are pretty easy to tackle. If you need more information, please visit us at marketplace.schulfried.com, where you can also find our manuals, statistical analysis for our tests, read more about the scientific background if what you heard now has you interested, and if you need any more specific information. In the meantime, thank you so much for your attention, and I hope to see you in another webinar. Have a nice day and bye-bye.